Yeah, it's in the. Ah, I think we've started. I need to tell David Walters that the public link is in the chat above what you sent me just then. Hello, dear viewer, wherever you are. Hello, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Well, it's a compact and bijou so far this evening. I was hoping to get Ranty Bruce here, but Ranty Bruce has not arrived yet. Anyway, so let's move directly and quickly without any delay to something I thought was very cool. I don't know, Gene, did you see that singer? Oh, here he is. Here he is. Better late than never now. Will he be wearing a hat? Oh, he's coming disguised. He's the Ranty Bruce isn't here. He's his doppelganger. How you going, Bruce?
Good, mate. Good.
Good. Well, I was going to leap to that Singaporean swinging, flying super thing in a minute, but let's rewind. Let's go back to where I really wanted to start, which was talking about the Canadian regulations. Canada, oh Canada, what are you doing? You made a very effective blog post about it, or vlog even today, Bruce. Have you calmed down yet?
Oh yeah, I'm very mellow now. I've sucked on a lithium battery. That's great for that sort of thing.
Very good. And after consuming a little bit of lithium, what was your takeaway comment or thoughts? Well, I'll tell you mine. This can't go through. Can't happen.
Yeah, it's a room with the tapping of white canes is all you can hear because it's the blind trying to work out what they're doing. It's just like these people have no knowledge, understanding, experience, or awareness of what they're doing. How crazy are these people? You must get a license or a special flight operating certificate to do a loop or a roll with your little foam plane. My goodness. And it's not even based on the real risks. If you look at the risk profile, how many people have been killed? How many people have been seriously injured? How much property damage has there been? Really? Seriously, guys? Lay off the medicinal marijuana.
Is that allowed in Canada? In Canadian land?
Yeah, it is. I
Canada
think they're working on it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, it's just plain madness, isn't it? It's not even... Gene, I don't know if you had this...
Plain madness. That's very good, Gary.
Yeah, you're keeping up. Yeah, keeping up. But it is. It's going to start. If you're younger than 16, forget it. Forget model aircraft flying.
Actually, younger than 14 in some cases.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but there was 16 takes it in, and the 1 kilo weight bin. The weight bins came from when the man from AeroVironment was in charge of the US or one of the US ARC things, and they had 4 weight bins that they came up with, and spookily, I don't know how it happened. I don't know how it could be, but they fitted their aircraft that they sold exactly. An amazing coincidence. How could that happen? When was that? Was Gene? That was about 2007, 2008, 2009, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah, that's correct. When Brother Ted was sitting on the Ark.
That's right. Brother Ted was the leader of the Ark at the time, I think, wasn't he? Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the 250 grams didn't come from there, though, did it?
No.
No,
that was Legal Beagle and the Stratton study.
Yeah, but it was 1 kilo was in there. I can't even remember what was in there now, but 1 kilo was in there, and then it was like it jumped up to like 4, and then 7, and then up to 20 or something, didn't it? But the Canadians are going 250 grams, then 250 to 1 kilo, and then 1 kilo all the way up to 25. Count them, and as your point you made in your vlog is the kinetic energy and stuff is vastly different for 25 kilos, especially if it's a pointy 25 kilos. A quad at 25 kilos are going to be very different to a fast pointy thing. And also they're restricting speed as well. 100 knots, I think, wasn't it, Bruce? For the bigger ones. But you're doing what I did last week. That's right.
100 miles. It's 100 miles an hour, not 100 knots.
Oh, 100 miles an hour. Okay. Yeah. Well, I just think it's madness, and I think everyone's got to join in with the 12, 13, 14. I can't remember how many thousand members the Canadian Model Aircraft Association had, but we've all got to join in and help shout with them. It's just ridiculous. It can't get through. It just can't get through.
Yeah, even then, they say in one part there's no exemption for MAAC members, and then they say there is an exemption. Is there or isn't there? I mean, it's so obtuse that they've obviously obfuscated the whole meaning of the thing. I don't think they know what they're doing, actually. So how people, and one of the criteria for their rules, they have to be easily understood in plain language. Well, that clause about the exemption and the non-exemption, I can't make head or tail of it.
Yeah, absolute madness. I don't know, Gene and David, did either of you guys read that?
Yeah, it is. It's pretty ludicrous to be able to think about trying to teach aero modeling or it in STEM or STEAM or whatever else they want. Pretty much a quietus on the science and technology.
Oh, yeah, it's just madness, isn't it? And to some extent, it's. I was thinking about it today. Traditional aero modelers have a lot invested in what they've made. If it's not almost ready to fly, it might be a super scale thing, and they've invested millions of hours in it, and they're actually pretty safe with it by default because they don't want to trash all that work, and they take themselves away to places, to flying fields, and they go and fly and they do all that sort of thing. They're getting the sins of others really visited on them, aren't they? A responsible group is shouldering some of the burden of a wider group. And I suppose we always come back down to saying education and then Bruce's 2 golden rules. But is there anything else? I don't think there's anything else.
Well, the thing is, how it was tackled in the UK. I mean, the BMFA, the British Model Flying Association, has been around donkey's years. And they've had really great contact with the CAA with regarding regulations, and help defining, the limits for the modelers, for FPV, and there's been discussions. But from what I've seen of Canada, and I haven't looked at it in too much in depth, but having a read through, it doesn't look like they've even spoken to anyone. It looks like they've just sat around the table and gone, these are the rules, this is what's going to be for everyone, and not just had a discussion with any commercial bodies or even the hobby community. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, but their transport minister is an ex-astronaut. He must know what he's doing.
Well, yes, you'd think, wouldn't you? But yeah, so that's the minister. What about in the authority itself? Plainly, it's not a room full of aero modelers, is it?
Doesn't look like it.
No. So we can chalk this. We can bring this conversation to a quick conclusion. Then we're against it in all forms and ways.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem is that, like so many regulators, they fail to draw that distinction between the idiot who's just bought his new Phantom 4 and doesn't know what he's doing, and the people who've been flying models and recreational drones for many years and have the understanding, the knowledge, the experience, the skill, and the common sense. I mean, why can't you draw that simple distinction? It's not a hard thing to do, but regulators refuse to do it all over the world.
I don't know. Just before we started, we were looking. You weren't here, Bruce, because you were late. We were looking at the controversy of the moment, jailbreaking products, and we were watching a video of somebody flying in the UK, right in the heart of holding land for London, basically. 2 or 3 of the holding areas, open countryside underneath him, not a built-up area, but he's above the cloud where people are in the hold for Gatwick, Heathrow, London City, probably some of the stuff going over the top for Stansted as well. I'll have to look at it. I should look at the airspace. Have we entered the time of real proper enforcement then? If people are able to do this, is it time to enforce it? I don't think the people that are jailbreaking, that are moving the jailbreaking movement, I don't think they it's an unintended consequence of their action. I think they're all about you owning the product and having a right to do what you like with it. But of course, with that comes responsibility. I don't know. This is it's not in this isn't in the notes. So anyone want to offer some views up?
Yeah, enforcement is crucial. I mean, without enforcement, rules are just a waste of paper. And even Transport Canada admit in that sort of regulations that they don't have the facilities to enforce the rules. So why even bother wasting everybody's time? You need to enforce rigorously. Instead of spending hours and hours and hours in expensive hotels and with consultations and meetings coming up with rules that nobody will follow, why don't you spend that money on hiring some people to go out there and nail the ones who are causing the issues? I mean, like the guy that flew at, was it Tel Aviv Airport? They tracked him down. They've arrested him. I mean, that's what needs to happen on all these occasions. And it's not hard. I mean, we've got all this technology now, apparently. So why don't all these big airports like Gatwick and so forth, why don't they have people dedicated to the task of, if there's a drone, tracking them down, nailing them, and locking them up for a long time?
Yeah, absolutely. That Tel Aviv one, and the reason we were talking about it is because the person that's doing these pretty crazy flights allegedly has offered a prize for, if you can get lots of videos of airliners in flight, he'll send you an well, I doubt very much if he's got the money to send you an Inspire, but he says he'll send you an Inspire, and we have a feeling that he is the person, or that is what inspired, no pun meant there, that chap to do that. Was the idea of the prize. Yeah, it's not big and it's not clever.
I think the thing is as well, though. I mean, people say drones are the problem. I mean, you could do all of this if you really wanted to before, you know, the likes of the DJI systems come out, as we spoke earlier. You know, the CC3D controllers, etc., the open pilots. You know, if you really wanted to go and do stupid stuff, you know, you could go and do it, whether it be with that system or with a DJI system. It's the fact that when you operate these, you know, even as a hobbyist, and whether you fly a model aircraft or whatever, you take on the responsibility of flying the aircraft safely. You know, and that's why the model aircraft industry and the hobby side of things, you know, has had such a solid grounding, because the number of incidences have been very few. But then you get these kind of people that come along that just think the rules don't apply to them. The safety aspect doesn't apply to them, and I just don't understand it. I just think it's really reckless. It's really dangerous. Some of the flights we've seen have been at night. So again, if you've got a police helicopter in the area or something like that, especially around London, you know, there's some serious consequences there that are going to occur. Yeah, and as for the guys at Jailbreak, I get it. They want to take ownership of their products. You know, we had a games console manufacturer only a few years ago, you know, that started removing functionality from the system itself. You buy it and you were able to play certain discs, etc. And then they released a software update that you couldn't do that. But when you bought that product, it did have that functionality. And that's what you paid for. And then that was taken away from you. So, you know, I understand you pay your money and you want that product. But the people that are flying with these jailbroken systems, they need to understand the implications and take ownership of what they're doing.
In the comments, Canadian Flyer, or maybe that's Canadian Flyer. I don't know. Canadian Flyer says that, and you're bang on right. I was going to say something like this as well. That when you built your own systems a few years ago, you're right. You could have used any of the open source systems to do a similar thing, but whether your device would have stayed together long enough to reach that sort of altitude and that sort of thing would be another thing altogether. And some modern products are really, really capable aircraft, and they do stay together and they can get themselves there. My stuff wouldn't there. So he says it also took knowledge and work which exempted perhaps stupid people, his words, not mine, which is perhaps true. Yeah, I mean, it was a little bit harder a few years ago. Some people even tried to make DIY cruise missiles and things like that, but obviously that's not what everybody did. It wasn't, you know, it wasn't a big broad brush thing.
Actually, one thing, this is a bit like drink driving, isn't it? I mean, there was an era when drink driving was acceptable and people just, it was a risk, you know. We managed to change people's, well, drink driving isn't so much of an issue anymore because we educated people and we changed the social climate for those who drank and drive. It was no longer an acceptable thing to do. And we did that through enforcement and education. Same thing with these drones. Making new rules won't work. You've got to enforce the ones you've got. You've got to educate people. And we as a community have to stand up and say, hey, you can't do this. That's what happened with that Tel Aviv thing. I think a lot of people complained and filed complaints, so the authorities had to act. And we as a community have to police ourselves. And when I see someone flying a drone in a park in a way that's not safe or in violation of the regulations, I always go and have a quick word with them and point out, you know, the folly of what they're doing. And it seems to work.
Well, you're a grumpy old duffer. There is that. Yeah.
Yeah, carry a big stick. Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're right. But yeah, the Model Aircraft Association in Canada just must feel like the earth's opened up underneath them now with these regulations. They must be shell shocked. I'm waiting for an official statement from them. I would have thought they would have jumped onto that.
Well,
pretty
it's
quickly.
interesting though, because regulators, I've seen this in many countries, the regulators offer them a little sweetener, you know, oh, we'll give you an exemption, or you can do this. And therefore the Model Aircraft Association tend to support the regulator because they don't want to get on the wrong side of them, because they know that it's better the devil you know than the one you don't. And if we piss them off, they may withdraw the sweeteners they've given us and the allowances they've made in terms of exemptions and so forth. So we have to curry favour rather than stand up for our rights. That's happening all over the world. I've seen like the FAA and in Canada, obviously the NAAC. Here in New Zealand, the same thing happens.
Yeah, yeah, I would be worried if I was an air modeler there. If I had a model aircraft shop or whatever, I was a vendor, I'd be worried, because if that comes through, then that's end of a lot of business. Should we draw a line under that one? Does anyone wish to rant further about that one? There we are, drawing a line under that one. Singapore, the VTOL. I love that thing. Did you see it, Gene?
Don't you think it'd make you really dizzy trying to watch the video on that one?
And then, yeah, but I mean, it's so obvious, isn't it? It's how much more efficient is it though? That's the real thing. Is it really, really, really much more efficient? I don't know if you saw it, Bruce, but it pivots, makes itself a helicopter, and then it flips that other wing over and puts itself off into forward flight, which is the obvious thing to do. So it'll be giving itself quite a bit of stability in that helicoptery bit. Are you going to play the video? Is that going to work? That's amazing. Make it full screen, Tian. Let's see if that works.
And it bumps it, but every time it makes a transition, it bumps it.
What did you reckon it did every time it transitioned?
It hit the ground.
Wow, early days, isn't it? But I reckon that was a pretty slick thing to do.
I watched the video of it earlier. Actually, they're doing a field demo. I jumped on and watched that one, and it did exactly that. It almost looked like it was out of control, but obviously wasn't. And then as it transitioned, it seemed to drop altitude and then kind of take off. But if I was a pilot, the orientation on that must be so confusing.
I can't believe we've got a room full of naysayers. I thought that's really cool, and I had to try and make one straight away. It's just the complexity of it, isn't it? What's that, Gene? Oh, he's off. He's off for a minute. He's off to a call. Oh, so Jacko Meister says, no, it doesn't. We have some pretty animated discussions with New Zealand CAA, apparently, Bruce. All right, well, while he's disappeared, then Project Wings, new thing. Did we see that? And then the multiple engines involved in that. What's that all about?
I'd love to know that. I'd love to know the hardware that's kind of sitting behind this. I mean, the only thing I can relate it to, for the number of props in that kind of configuration, was similar to the Intel Falcon 8. That ladder design, you know, although there's 4 motors or 5 motors I think either side on the Falcon 8. Having flown it myself, you know, the small props with the small motors in that fashion, when turned into the high winds, can handle the stability really well. And obviously in this case, it's only used for the lift transition. But yeah, I'd be interested to see some video of it once they get it up in the air and flying. Great concept.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it carry much though, does it?
Well, it depends what their ultimate end goal is, I guess, really.
Yes, that's true. And then the propeller shape was a bit weird, wasn't it?
Yeah, they're more of a steeper angle. It almost looks, from the photos, like a 30-degree pitch, probably a little bit more than that. But then again, I'm not sure what the racing drones, you know, they're using these, you know, 4 rotor props now for a higher speed and efficiency. So it'd be interesting to see what the results come back with that.
Oh, actually, Bruce, that reminds me. We'll jump back to talk about props. So how do you get on with the props on that little racer in the end? Did you love them in the end, or did you hate them?
They're crap. They fly apart for a start, but some people have said they like the original ones that they're modelled on. Apparently, were not too bad, but these knockoffs are just absolutely terrible. They're unsafe. They fly apart. You know, break in midair, and that causes all sorts of bad things. So yeah, I've consigned mine to the rubbish bin.
And so did you see a marked improvement with some more standard propellers?
Yeah, that craft flew much better with the more conventional propellers. It was longer flight times, more pop, more maneuverable. It was just a much better craft with them.
You don't think the Google people have put some dummy props on that thing just for the photos?
Don't know.
I've actually just jumped onto their website actually just to have a look, and they've got imagery up of it flying. There's a build video as well that they've got in there. I think I might take some time later and just have a proper look to see how it performs, because it's a lot more different really than the ones we've seen before. The fact as well that they've got the V-shaped tail, and the motors are sitting on that same support round as the V-tail, where usually they'd be separate.
Are the motors embedded in that arm?
They're mounted on the top, from what I can see.
Oh, they are on top. Okay, I wondered if they put them in. Yeah, it's an interesting thing, and the most interesting thing I thought about that was they've sent it to Tridge country. If you know your ArduPilot and you know Outback Challenge and things like that, they're testing it in Canberra, where guess who lives? Tridge. Funny old thing. Of all the places in the world to go and choose to test the machine, you take it to the heart of ArduPilot country. So it's very interesting. It'd be interesting to see what they do with that. I'm having some more thoughts about delivery drones here after my deliveries that aren't happening. Having said so many times I don't believe in them, I'm now wanting to believe in them. Bruce, you were going to jump in, I think, then.
No, they should have given it to Pauline Hanson to test. She'd be right onto it.
Oh, no, she has. Well, as we know, she's got stick time, so it'll all be good. What happened to that? I haven't followed that at all this week. Has that just disappeared into the ether?
I've heard no more, and I think that you know what it's like. You never investigate your own when it comes to politics and things.
But is she in power, or is she on the sidelines?
I don't know if she's still in Parliament or not. She was a senator, but I don't keep up with Australian politics. I mean, it's boring as bat poo, isn't it?
Why, it's just across the water. I mean, when the tide's out, you can walk across, can't you?
Can you?
Yeah, something like that, isn't it? That's what I thought you could do. You just walk across there, see what's going on.
No, you use the Sydney Harbour Bridge. Yeah, they get you there.
It's a swing bridge, is it? It's just a big swing bridge. Yeah. No, it'll be interesting to see what happens with her, and I will follow that Google thing with interest with the ArduPilot guys on it. I'm still not a believer in separate lift thrusts just because you're dragging all those motors around. I don't get it. Why not just have a big standard helicopter that can lift an awful lot and fly for ages? Okay, it's a bit whizzy and dangerous. That'll be the reason why. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of those. Goodness me, and that is very quickly me through what I wanted to speak to. So I'll throw it open to the floor. Have we got any rants, gents?
I don't think we've got any rants. I think I've had some positive work, more so with the UKCA, with some projects that we're lining up within the UK, and they've been very forward-coming with some of the ideas, and hopefully we can share those with you guys sooner. Some of the projects we have planned are going to be quite interesting in the UK airspace, and there are going to be a few firsts, which I think will be quite good to share with you as well. And again, it's about having that relationship with the regulators. Having that communication channel. To be able to sit down with them and try and help define where the industry is going. And I think we're quite lucky with that in the UK. Whereas poor old Bruce, bless him, he has to take it to court just to get a meeting with them, let alone anything else. So, but no, I mean, I think the industry is forever evolving, and I think once they start realising from a regulatory point of view, there's also revenue to be earned from it. I think once they wake up and see that maybe a bit more, then they maybe they'll start to come on a bit more, and maybe Canada will kind of follow suit.
Well, they're leading the way with the revenue part of it.
I think they're leading the way for closing the industry by the sounds of it in Canada.
Yes. Now, Robert Elliott's got a rant, and he says, so here in the USA, everyone shows how far their drone quad goes. They break every FAA law the USA has. Yeah, came in late, Robert. You did say that, and we were mentioning that earlier. Particularly, there's some UK videos, and a chap is offering a bounty if you, or a reward if you, or a prize if you fly near an airliner and video it. And we think that's where the Israeli video incident perhaps popped up from. You can win yourself an Inspire if you get that sort of video. And obviously that's not cricket. And I think the party line is here, and I'll stand to be corrected by Mr. Simpson, but the party line is here: we support enforcement in inappropriate ways. I'll let you rant at that now, Mr. Simpson.
Isn't that conspiracy? If you are encouraging people to break the law, isn't it? Isn't that a crime in itself when you encourage people to break the law? So can't they charge that guy on that basis alone? I
think they've got a fat load of reasons to charge him. I think it's going to be choose your poison, really. But yeah, yes, I guess so. Yeah, I wouldn't know. We're not, the lawyers aren't here. And yeah,
and I'm sure as well, you know, the product that he's flying, you know, the manufacturer will be more than willing to support any case in the UK Court of Law, as they already declare that they are willing to support in any country. I believe that was the case.
Yeah, and the data will be available to support. But of course, we all know. I mean, all right, and you have to say, well, look at our big famous American vlogger, Casey Neistat. He got away with it, didn't he? He got away with it, my lord, because it couldn't prove it was him flying it. That's where there's that little bit of disconnect. And Kenji is still on the remote identification arc that's happening with the FAA now, and that's going to be part of it, is linking the person to the equipment. And of course, we know the defense. We just say it's Bruce and just hand whatever it is to Bruce, and that's how we're going to dodge around that one. But yeah, how are they finally going to nail people down? What is enough evidence? I suppose that changes country by country. I have no idea. The lawyers aren't here tonight.
Well, that's another thing. I'm surprised that all these countries have different regulations. Some of them are good. Australia's not too bad. Some of them are really bad, like Canada is planning to be, and some of them just effectively outright ban these things. Surely, given that aviation is a global thing, you can fly from one place in the world to another place using an airplane. Why don't these regulators all sit down, have a big meeting where they all get free trips and accommodation and hookers in the hotel rooms, all the normal stuff? Why don't they just sit around and nut this out and first of all establish the real risk profiles, look historically at the number of, you know, injuries, deaths, property damage, do the proper risk profile, sit down and agree on a unified set of regulations that can be applied across the board, so we don't have to worry that when we go on holiday to some country with our drone, we're not going to get arrested because drones are illegal. I mean, it would make sense. And these guys, instead of just, everyone is trying to lead the world. I remember when CAA brought out their new regulations here, they said this will be world-leading regulation because it's risk-based, and it wasn't, and it isn't. But every country is trying to lead, and so they're all wandering off in different directions, and there's no unified, you know, direction of regulation. That's why this whole thing is such a, you know, a mess.
Yeah,
and I think as well, just to touch on that, you know, the couple of incidences that we've seen recently that have gone public, where actually people have been injured by a drone. I think there was one this week. I can't remember the location. There was some concert on, and someone was flying a drone over the crowd, and it ended up crashing quite a big rig. It looked like an S1000, I think it was.
That was Erdogan's thing in Turkey, so it was a little bit of the political thing.
Yeah, so I mean that's just dangerous and reckless flying. You know, that isn't people just, you know, the general population. That's just stupidity in itself. There was another one at a football match. Someone was flying. It wasn't a Unique. It was the white system.
I know the one.
Someone threw a toilet roll at it.
Toilet roll, yeah.
And it took it down. There was the one the week before, someone flying at a concert, and they were literally, by the looks of it, flying down the walkway of where people come into the concert area, right in front of the stage. And then someone threw a bottle or something at it, I think. Oh, it's confetti cannon. A confetti cannon went off. Confetti got wrapped around the props, and then the Inspire just crashed. You know, these kind of incidents is that, you know, they publicise bad flying and the drones are bad, but I mean, there's 3 incidences out of probably 1.5 million drone flights across the globe occur yearly, you know, when you do that kind of stats, where is Canada getting their data from? You know, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that shared data down here for the 2010 World Cup, they had some sort of interim regulations, and so they allowed drone flying, and they said that their energy calculation, I thought, was quite smart. They said try not to be harder than a kicked football for the 2010 World Cup at the impact. And as I said earlier at the top of the show, you know, your impact for the 25 kilo thing will change quite dramatically, be it a round, lovely, cuddly thing or a sharp, fast, pointy thing. That'll make a big difference. And Bruce could probably do a great big diagram of that. And do you think you could get the RenderWorks fired up for that? You could explain droppy things very nicely, I'm sure, Bruce.
Yeah, I'll sharpen my crayons. I'm sure I could do something like that. Obviously, regulators have no grasp of physics.
Well, maybe. And we're getting some jailbroken comments here. How else could they prove you flew it? The owner must become responsible. Well, this is good. Yeah. How are we, dear viewer? There's more than one of you now, but dear viewer, how are we going to prove that? You know, I could just hand the controller to Bruce, couldn't I? So it was his fault. As I see the man in blue coming over, that proves nothing. Having electronic identification on the thing proves it was that aircraft or that drone, but it didn't prove who was actually driving. It's just same as your car, isn't it? You know, the police got to prove that you're driving it. You were driving it before they prosecute you. Yeah, I don't know. And the recklessness of people jailbreaking, I think there is the story of needing the or being allowed to use the equipment and not having somebody else restrict you. Owner is liable. I don't know. I'm ranting to comments. Are any of you guys seeing the other comments here?
No, I'm not seeing those.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. Let me see.
One thing's interesting. It's interesting at the moment that all these regulations, they're not preventative because no one's enforcing them. Therefore, if you're only going to use them reactively after someone's done something bad, then all you need to have is a regulation that says you may not place personal property in danger with your drone. Then that covers everything. Because if someone does injure someone or damage property, then they've broken that rule. You can do what you like to them. So why bother having this preventative regulation where you're not allowed to fly here or not allowed to fly there if you're not going to enforce it?
Yeah, and then at the same time, if you're going to do that and start having no-fly zones, you better make sure it's proper aviation data. I used to have to come in on a Monday morning, go to. I was supposed to go in on the weekend, never did. Check the teleprinter, well, whatever NOTAMs were there for the week, I had to get a pencil, Chinagraph pencil, put it on a map, plot it all out, and woe betide me if I'd been out on the Sunday night and may have had, you know, a concentrating experience with my dear friends somewhere, and I got it wrong. I was in deep trouble, and not deep trouble, a good telling off. And it irks me that the aviation data that is put onto apps and things is wrong. That really irks me. Rather not have it and just say use a chart and use your official aviation data sources than have these things that people then believe in. Because if you're a pilot and you're a manned pilot, you'll watch people ringing weather forecasters until they get the weather forecast they want to hear. Before they go flying, they just keep ringing around until they hear what they want to hear. And that's what people are doing with these apps. They're just looking at each of these apps until they see the one that says, oh, this one says I can fly, that's all right then. And that's annoying.
There must be some legal liability there if you're doing this service, these sort of these apps and things, and someone acts on your information and someone is injured or property is damaged. Surely you're standing in line to get prosecuted.
Well, yeah, well, that's when I was the 17-year-old youth with a Chinagraph pencil drawing things on a map. I was in that line of liability of reading the teleprompter. And if you think about the modern world, it's easy. You know, you don't need to be reading a bit of paper that you've torn off a printer. You know, it can all be done electronically, but it must come from the source, as it were. It must come from the grown-ups, not.
And I think as well, just to touch on that, Bruce. I mean, even as like SeaKeyNet, the product that we provide, we've got all the airspace data in there, and we pick a data provider that has all these assurances with quality that it's up to date. They get it directly from the source, but even the source, which is a regulator, doesn't provide any guarantee. So from a liability standpoint, we can't then pass on 100% guarantee that that airspace is right, because the regulator themselves that's given us the data says use it for information purposes only. You know, it's just...
So what? So does the regulator? At the end of the day, do they say the paper chart is king? What way? Otherwise, the paper chart then is also pointless, isn't it? It's also, you know, the bug's got to stop somewhere.
Exactly. I mean, and the digitized data that we utilize is the digitized map. I mean, you can do comparisons. They are identical. You know, they come from the same source for the guy that actually prints the paper maps. You know, it's all one. We'll wait and see.
Because the no-fly zones that are out there, and somebody's saying on the comments that Robert's saying, you know, DJI wouldn't sell many aircraft if they were strictly enforced where they must fly. But then who is going to? It's the education piece again. We are such a broken record, aren't we? It's the education piece again. It's just, and then how do you start that? How do you get the person that's wandered into the big box store and bought the thing? How do you get that education happening? Pause.
I know from in the UK that DJI, you know, they've done a couple of maybe 1 or 2 days in the UK for people to come and learn to fly a drone. But actually, why hasn't DJI partnered with the likes of the BMFA, which is the largest model flying organisation in the UK, thousands of members, and gone, right, guys, look, we want you one day a month, host an open workshop where people can come along, learn about the system, learn about safety, you know, instead of just, let's say, maybe that's why people are getting fed up. You know, there's all this force coming down from DJI on what you can and can't do, you know, and it's being done blindsided, let's say. You know, they're not actually having a face-to-face conversation, having a proper explanation why you can't fly in these areas. And maybe if they partnered with a BMFA and you could speak to someone physically and have an understanding and fly the system, there might be, you know, it might be taken on board better, as opposed to saying, no, you can't do it. No, you can't do it.
And again, there we are. It's the people that are commenting on the chat and ourselves. It's preaching to the choir, isn't it? We all want to fly reasonably safely and maybe not utterly responsibly. My 13-year-old lad is more. It keeps telling me off. He's more responsible than me. But you know, we generally don't want to put people in harm's way. And the jailbreaking perhaps is also exposing other things. It's exposing areas of code that are coming from other places, and perhaps it's going to help keep companies honest. Somebody's saying you don't need to jailbreak Autel. That's very true. And time to keep a certified database online of people, that hasn't gone particularly well in America, has it? And yeah, do we want to chip in on that?
Yeah. One thing that's interesting is that as I say, this is a complete mess. I would like to be able to teach people here to fly drones, and that involves basic safety routines and everything, and giving them a basic awareness of how to fly the things, what to do, what not to do. But the regulations actually prevent me from doing that. And the local council, which is another authority, they prevent me from doing it. So you got on the one hand saying, oh, we need education, we need education. Someone like myself comes along and says, I'll educate them. And everyone goes, oh, no, you can't do that. Well, excuse me, but is education important or isn't it? And why do you make it so hard for people like myself in a place like this to provide that education? There's no coordination between local authorities and central government authorities and regulators. It's just, I bang my head against so many walls. Where do you think my hair went? It's all just to braid it off.
Braid it off, that sounds very technical. Perhaps you could do a diagram of that as well. If Bruce has accelerated at the wall at this speed, how quickly will his hair braid off? Yes, I could see that coming through the render center. Now, Tiana, hiding in the background behind the logo, and Robert says governments like to get involved. Do they? I think governments like to sit around and do as little as possible if they can get away with it. You're saying not recklessness of jailbreaking, the reckless use of jailbroken drones. I'm not quite sure what you're trying to say to us, Tien.
No, earlier you just you mentioned you spoke about recklessness of jailbreaking, I think you did mean the reckless use of jailbroken drones.
Maybe I did, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, get my mucky
Because I agree
muddled
with
up
one
again.
of the commenters who also said that now. You know, it's not that jailbreaking is the reckless part. Again, so many other systems you don't even need to jailbreak. You could be doing these things and flying in no-fly zones and restrictions where you don't need jailbreaking. And jailbreak is just kind of putting it on the same level as those, and it comes down to, again, like we were saying, people's own personal responsibility. Because imagine Cessna, if you're flying a manned aircraft. Yeah, it's not 100% comparison, but imagine Cessna started auto-homing your aircraft because their Garmin database that they're using on the Garmin GPS that's in the Cessna is maybe out of date, or there was a glitch or something, and suddenly their responsibility to prevent aircraft from doing certain things. They need to make sure that the system does what the user tells it, and then it's the user's responsibility. Just like it is in any other, if you're driving a car, if you're flying a manned aircraft, you can't overreach your control like that. That's my view anyway, or you shouldn't be. You're looking for trouble because, like we were saying as well, with the no-fly zones. So yeah, if you're going to do no-fly zones and you're going to enforce, say like DJI does, enforce zones or hover, whatever, then that data needs to be very accurate. Then it can't just be a random 5 mile or 10 mile. Then you have to have every single airspace that you're not allowed to fly in, not just an airport. Then you have to do it 100%. If you're going to do it at all, you have to do it 100% basically, or as close as possible. So basically, if you're going to do that, your data needs to be correct.
Yeah, I agree with that, because one of the problems is, like, even the DJI system, people who know that the DJI has the Geo system, they may think, well, I'll just rely on that. So if the drone will take off, I'm good to fly. But that's not true, because here in New Zealand, there's a 1 kilometre radius around the centre of an airfield, but legally, there's a 4 kilometre exclusion zone. So you can't rely on DJI to tell you the facts. And the same with these apps. If you rely on an app and the app isn't dead right, then you can blindly go off thinking you're doing the right thing and doing the wrong thing. So in some ways, these things are worse than having no control at all, because they provide people with a false sense of security. And if you're going to have the app and then you have to check again to make sure the app's right, it's like having a dog and barking yourself. Why would you bother?
And to be fair to DJI, they're damned if they do, damned if they don't, and they don't actually supply the airspace information that they're using. They buy that in from another vendor. Let's be clear about that. Yeah. And that data is used across several apps. So that vendor needs to make sure they get their ducks in a row. And it's no small task, is it? If you think about the world's controlled airspace and airfields, the world, you plainly need regional managers for this data and all this sort of thing. I'm not sure what David's flashing pictures. He's flashing away there. I can't quite see what he's doing down there. There's something going on, and there's lots of blue. Oh, here we go. Oh, ESA. Yes, now they're preparing to roll out, well, the European-wide, and ICAO is hoping to do that, aren't they? And that's U-Space. Have they got anything about U-Space there, David?
I'm just looking through it now. So, I mean, what we're talking about, kind of leading towards a registration system and categorizing systems and everything else. So EASA are quite far ahead with this now, and they've got essentially categories CO to C4, and they're on about having any product that comes in that you buy off the shelf being labelled up with the relevant category that relates to the EASA regulations, with a leaflet inside the box informing you, what you can and can't do. And on the leaflet, it tells you the age requirements as well. So I think, maybe if EASA actually get this right and get this out, I think the plan is by 2018, 2019. Maybe the US, might end up following suit with a similar structure. For example, home-built drones less than 250 grams, max height of 50 meters. So we're looking at like the FPV races, I'm guessing. The C1s is under 900 grams with a max height of 120 meters. They've got proximities, although they are using a DJI S1000 and saying It's a maximum of a 4 kilo drone. I think they might look at the DJI spec sheet for that. But it just goes to show, that there are regulators out there that are, they're communicating with the UK RPAS. They're talking to the BMFA. We've had 2 or 3 now talk sessions with data going backwards and forwards to try and kind of get an opinion and a solution that fits everyone. They don't want to destroy the hobby industry. They don't want to crucify the commercial pilots, because they know it's an industry that isn't going to go away. It's going to keep developing. So, I mean, this is available now on the EASA website. It's the latest update from the 5th of July, a workshop that they did. Some really good reading, actually. There's some really good supported videos as well. Again, it might be worth the US maybe taking a bit of a look.
Well, yes, that's not something that's ever happened. They actually actively refused to have some of the safety data that Australia and England wanted to provide them. They wouldn't bring that into the record. In about 2000 and it was a Paris year, so it would be an odd year, 2009, I think it was. Yeah, and they didn't go to that Paris, and there was a big UAS meeting at that Paris, and they weren't there, so they missed out on everything, and they were roundly ignored. But anyway, moving on swiftly.
David, just while I'm thinking of it, that graphic you showed there, it had craft weighing less than 250 grams restricted to 50 meters, but craft weighing 250 to 900 grams could go to 120 meters. What is it with it? People think these small craft are more dangerous than big craft. You can't let a little model go up to higher than 50 meters, but a bigger one can go to 120 meters. Well, it's like in Canada. If it's a small one, it can only do 30 miles an hour. If it's a big one, it can do 100 miles an hour. What's wrong? Am I missing something here? What's going on?
No, I don't know. I don't understand it. Maybe you need to send them some of your diagrams and say, look, guys, I want to give you a physics lesson.
Yeah, no, it's fire up the render farm. Get crayons sharpened.
The thing with the EASA, the great thing is, they want feedback. They're talking to the community. As I said earlier, and it's not a closed and cut, case. These aren't the rules, and you've got to fly by them. They're actively communicating to try and find the best solution. I think this was round 2 of the discussions. I think they've been tweaked slightly since then, and no doubt there'll probably be another round 3 and maybe even a round 4. We'll wait and see.
Call me a cynic, but I spoke to our local council and they said, by law we must consult, but we don't have to listen.
Well, yeah,
there is that, but then there'll still be the record of what people said somewhere, won't they? Like, or dare I mention it in America, where they said the voting thing, and they've published everyone's names and addresses that didn't want to have them published, didn't they? So they made it a public meeting. Anyway, shouldn't really talk about things like that. But actually, talking about America, I see they have put on hold the privatization of air traffic, and that's quite important, because that was going to be another money grabbing point. People stood up ready to be part of that privatization. Yes, and perhaps things need to be improved over there, but it didn't really need to happen so quickly. So I'm very pleased to see that has been put on hold, because that would have been another unmanned traffic management UTM airspace grab on the part of some big companies. So yeah, that was double-edged. It's not all about improving your journey times to and from and safety and stuff like that. That was a UTM grab. So I'm glad that's been put on hold. What else was I going to say? Oh yeah, I know, David, and that thing, does it say anything about altimeter settings? I've been thinking about this week, and this so smooth where I say they were tripping over themselves here in DC to implement pay for access to the national airspace. They absolutely were. Pay to plays on the path, and that's a lot of what this remote identification is. Kenji's a good fellow, and he's on the side of good, but this remote identification is exactly about that. It's not about finding the perpetrator doing the bad act. It's about paying that person for, it's like in-app game purchases, move the next level up. I don't do it. The kids do. I don't really. So I don't know what that means, but you make micro payments, don't you, to move forward and stuff, and that's exactly what people are after.
Yeah, I think on the for the EASA stuff, I think it's on the category C3 or C4 where they kind of hit the commercial areas. I think it's C3 and C4. That they then request the aircraft be registered, fitted with transponders, as we typically expected. It was going to kind of go that way anyway. I'm trying to think what else they've highlighted here. I'm just having a quick look through. I think that's as far as they take it. But again, I think ideally they'd like a registration system. Actually, here we go. So anything over, by the looks of it, the 900 grams. So the C2 category, which is maximum takeoff weight of no less than 4 kilos. So that's the 900 grams up to 4 kilos. Always must have a way of automatic transmission of identification data. And C3 and C4 and C1, when flying in specific zones, so I guess airspace, they must also have a way of transmitting identification data. Okay, there is a small print note as well. It's if your aircraft is fitted with a camera with a greater resolution of 5 megapixels, it must also be equipped. So I don't know where that comes in. Maybe that's a privacy thing. They want to know where you're flying with a high-resolution camera. I need to look at this a bit more detail, I think. Maybe I can come back to some notes at another time.
4 kilos in pounds, team. That's about 12 pounds, isn't it? I can never. No, it's two, isn't it? That's not. It's supposed to be about 8 pounds. It's an Inspire size machine, is it?
Yeah, I'm guessing
that's 2.2, so it's
8.8. That's what it says on the sugar, isn't it? 2.2. That's right. Yeah. What have we got? They're just saying Dave 123. Dave, lots of numbers is saying the Canadian weight thing is for commercial use. Yeah, there's that, but there's the fact that the risk doesn't seem to be connected to weight intelligently, I think, is what we're trying to get at there. The altimeter settings is where I wanted to go and see if there was any regulations anywhere for that, because I think we need to start growing up and start using aviation terms, QNH, QFE, and things like that. Because if we really want beyond visual line of sight to happen, we're going to have to start playing along with the aeroplanes as well. So I just wondered if there was anything in that European thing, but we'll look at that in a minute. Now, what's David putting up here? Airbus claims success.
I'm surprised you're not discussing this, because Airbus has successfully carried out a 7-minute unmanned flight with a jet-propelled aircraft in South Africa.
Yeah, well, we'll actually wait for real proof of that.
Well, yeah, Overberg is military airspace down here.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a few things that go on here that don't, interestingly, don't make the local news. Funny old thing. Yeah, no, they do test a few things down here. What are we doing at time? 7 minutes to go. Oh, Formula E races and the drone race. Yes, did we see that? Did we see that quad crash? No, it was an Octo, wasn't it? At the Formula E. That was. Well, what did we think of that then?
It was a DJI 1000, I think it was, wasn't it?
What was it?
It was a DJI S1000.
What, with a body put on it?
Yeah, I think so. Let's just see if I can find the video now, actually.
Yeah, it was a spectacular rollover crash, wasn't it? And of course, Chris Ballard.
Yeah. Sorry, it wasn't an S1000. That was another event. I'm just watching the video now of it actually smashing into the. It looks like it might have been a Mavic, actually.
No, it's bigger than that. It's bigger than that. And it, but of course, Chris Ballard's on his tour. I think he's back in Germany now, and he would have been the man to talk about large multi-rotors and just how hard they are to get working. And I think it very nicely demonstrated it there, actually. And what I thought was interesting, there was crowd all around them. Yeah, they had the size of the street circuit, but there was nothing to stop that thing popping up and going over the fence and having that accident. People were very, very close to that machine of its size. Anyway.
Well, the other thing also, just to add to that, with them, depending on where the pilot was, it's almost like they were flying inside a Faraday cage because they were just surrounded by metal fencing.
What could go wrong? What could happen? What could possibly go wrong? Oh, yes.
I think that's another provision that wasn't in the Canadian laws. I saw that you have to make sure that you're not going to have radio interference. How are you going to do that?
Well, that, of course, was the big excuse used by that chap in Australia that hit the runner at the finish. You remember that one a couple of years ago where the runner was going to win until boff, which was one way of the opposition to get him out. But that was the first defence they leapt to, wasn't it? They'd been hijacked. Yeah. And then that electronic conspicuity, I'm a bit bewildered as to why we're not equipping people with devices just for decoding the data streams that already exist on these aircraft. Why we seem to be reinventing the wheel a little bit. I'm sure you got some ideas on that, Bruce.
Yeah. I mean, like as I said some time ago in a blog, I think that the video and the telemetry streams and the control links all have a globally unique identifier built into the packets of data that go backwards and forwards. So it would be a very trivial task for someone like DJI to simply provide the authorities with a link between that and the point of sale or whatever, or when you go along with your drone, you simply register the GUID with the authorities. That sort of thing's pretty simple to do. There's no added technology required there. But the whole issue of the growing area of people who build their own drones, what are they going to do about that? I mean, there's nothing you can do to stop people from building their own gear. So you might regulate, a few people, but there's still a large mass of people who are going to be flying under your radar, and you won't be able to do anything about it. So how are you going to get the levels of compliance that are needed to make this all work?
Look at that, David. Why did you did that the other week? David says we've joined 2 Davids now. Now, which one do I talk to? And he's not. That didn't even make him 3D or anything. I thought I was going to make him 3D.
I'll tell you what happened there.
Oh, it locked you out on somewhere else today. And let's say there's lots of people talking about Canada and drone laws being draconian, but I think we all have to. In the US directions, the DIY crowd is going to grow now for lots of other reasons as well. But I think as a community, the very big we. I think we've got to stand together with Canada. Everyone has to stand with Canada, help them out, complain and moan whenever there's going to be whatever there is going to be, or actually just comment. There must be a comment period. Bruce thinks they'll be ignored, but there's got to be a comment period, and perhaps we've got to send in sensible comments. So show us the data. Why have you decided these numbers? Where has all this come from? Maybe they can show us something that will prove us all wrong. And but I doubt it. I doubt it very much. Right then, 3 minutes to go. Gentlemen, do we have anything else? Yeah. All's good in the world. All right then. Well, thanks very much to everybody that's been chatting away in the side. I'm sorry if we're not very good at I'm not very good at reading and trying to react at the same time, but thank you very much for joining us. Either like, hate, whatever, comment away in the bottom once we've finished, and we'll try and get back to your comments next time. We'll try and if you've got any questions or anything, or if you've got anybody you'd like us to dive off and find, grab by the scruff of the neck and pull into the conversation and interrogate him the way that we do, then we'd love to try and do that as well. But until next week, 2100 GMT, I'm going to say thanks very much, gentlemen. Thanks very much for joining in. Thanks very much, dear viewers, wherever you are in the world. Have a very safe rest of the week and weekend. And say we'll see you again next Tuesday, 2100 GMT. Cheerio. Bye-bye.